You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your IT Fundamentals certification journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. In this episode, we explore the essential topic of authentication. How users prove their identity before accessing systems, services, or data. Authentication is one of the most basic and important security processes in IT, and it ensures that only authorized individuals can use protected resources. We will define three common authentication models: single-factor authentication, multifactor authentication, and single sign-on. Understanding these models will help you answer identity and access questions in Domain 6 of the Information Technology Fundamentals Plus exam. The exam focuses on conceptual understanding rather than technical configuration. You may be asked to define what multi-factor authentication is, recognize what single sign-on looks like, or match login scenarios to the appropriate authentication model. You will not need to set up biometric devices or configure authentication settings. The goal is to become familiar with these models and understand how they are used to verify identity and protect systems. Authentication is the process of verifying that a user is who they claim to be. This step usually happens before access to a system, application, or database is granted. Authentication involves using credentials information or objects that prove identity. These credentials can include something the user knows, like a password, something the user has, like a key card or security token, or something the user is, like a fingerprint or face scan. Without proper authentication, access should be denied. Single-factor authentication, also known as SFA, uses only one method to verify identity. This is the most basic and common form of authentication. The most widely used example is a simple username and password combination. When you log into an email account or a personal website using just a password, you are using single-factor authentication. Although easy to implement and use, it provides the least amount of protection because a single compromised credential can lead to unauthorized access. Examples of single-factor authentication include logging into your email account using only a password, unlocking a phone with a 4-digit PIN, or logging into a work computer with just a username and password. These methods are familiar, quick, and simple, but they are also vulnerable to threats like phishing, keylogging, or weak password practices. Because they rely on a single point of failure, single-factor systems are considered the least secure. Multi-factor authentication, or MFA, uses two or more different types of credentials to verify a user's identity. This model improves security by requiring a combination of verification types. The core principle behind MFA is that even if one factor is compromised, the system remains protected because the attacker would still need the second or third factor to gain access. MFA is commonly used in banking, healthcare, and government systems. Examples of multi-factor authentication include entering a password followed by a text message code, using a fingerprint scan along with a smart card, or logging in with a username and then approving the access request through a mobile authentication app. Each of these examples uses at least two different categories of verification, making unauthorized access much harder to achieve. For this reason, MFA is considered a best practice in security. There are three commonly used categories or factors in multi-factor authentication. The first is something you know, such as a password, PIN, or answer to a security question. The second is something you have, like a smart card, physical token, or mobile phone. The third is something you are, which includes biometric data like facial recognition, voice recognition, or fingerprints. MFA systems use a combination of these factors to strengthen identity verification. Single sign-on, often abbreviated as SSO, allows a user to log in once and gain access to multiple systems or applications without needing to log in again for each one. This model is especially common in business and educational environments where users access many services throughout the day. By using SSO, Users experience fewer login interruptions, which improves efficiency and reduces the number of credentials they must remember. The main benefits of SSO include simplified access for users, reduced password fatigue, and centralized control for system administrators. Users only need to remember one strong set of credentials, and administrators can manage permissions from a single point. This reduces the chances of password reuse, helps enforce security policies, and makes it easier to revoke access when someone leaves the organization. These advantages make SSO appealing for large environments with many services. However, SSO does have some limitations. If a user's SSO credentials are compromised, an attacker may gain access to all linked systems. For this reason, organizations that use SSO often combine it with multifactor authentication to reduce risk. Managing SSO also requires careful planning to ensure security and compliance. On the Information Technology Fundamentals Plus exam, you do not need to know how to set up or secure SSO, just recognize what it is and when it is used. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. When comparing the three authentication models, it's helpful to look at their key features and intended use cases. Single-factor authentication is the simplest and most common, but also the least secure. Multi-factor authentication adds significant protection by combining multiple verification methods. Single sign-on focuses on user convenience by allowing access to many systems with one set of credentials. Each model serves a different purpose, and understanding these differences is essential for the Information Technology Fundamentals Plus exam. Single-factor authentication is typically used for basic access to low-risk systems. Examples include general websites, social media accounts, or devices with limited sensitive data. While not recommended for high-security environments, it is still widely used due to its simplicity. However, organizations are increasingly moving away from relying solely on single-factor authentication, especially when more robust solutions are available. Multi-factor authentication is used when additional security is needed to protect sensitive data or services. This includes systems that handle financial transactions, medical records, or confidential business documents. Adding a second or third factor makes it much harder for attackers to gain access, even if they know the user's password. Multi-factor authentication is considered a standard security best practice across industries. Single sign-on is most useful in environments where users interact with many different systems throughout the day. In business settings, for example, a user may need access to email, document storage, project tracking tools, and financial systems. With SSO, the user logs in once and gains access to all approved applications. This reduces time spent entering passwords and improves overall user satisfaction. On the exam, you may be asked to recognize authentication models based on scenarios. A question might describe a user logging into multiple services after a single login. This is SSO. Another scenario might include a system requiring a password and a mobile authentication code. This is clearly MFA. If a user is asked for just a password with no second step, that would be SFA. These scenario-based questions require careful reading and matching the description to the correct. The exam will not require you to configure accounts, set up authentication methods, or troubleshoot login issues. You will not be tested on configuring biometric devices or generating access tokens. Instead, the focus is entirely on conceptual recognition. Know what each model means, what it is used for, and how it differs from the others. The simplicity of the question structure means you can succeed by mastering terminology and examples. Key terms to memorize include authentication, single-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication, and single sign-on. Additional terms like credential, factor, and identity also appear frequently. A credential refers to the specific piece of information used to prove identity. such as a password or biometric scan. A factor is the category the credential belongs to. Identity is the confirmed association between the user and their access rights. Common exam questions include matching terms to their definitions or choosing the correct model for a given description. For example, you might be asked, "What type of authentication uses a password and fingerprint?" The answer would be MFA. Or, which model allows access to multiple systems with a single login? The answer would be SSO. Being familiar with the vocabulary will make these questions straightforward and approachable. Authentication is also closely related to access control and user roles. Authentication verifies who the user is. Authorization, on the other hand, defines what the user is allowed to do once logged in. These two concepts often appear together. For example, after successful authentication, a user may only have access to specific files based on their role, such as administrator, editor, or viewer. The exam may reference both concepts in the same scenario. The reason authentication matters so much in IT is that it is the first line of defense in protecting systems and data. Every device, application, or online service must verify the identity of its users to ensure that only the right people gain access. Poor authentication practices can lead to data breaches, service disruption, and security violations. That's why authentication is a universal concept across all areas of technology. Authentication also supports broader security goals, particularly the principle of confidentiality. By blocking unauthorized access, authentication helps protect personal and business data from exposure. It also supports system monitoring, since login records and access attempts can be tracked. Authentication is a key part of identity and access management, often abbreviated as IAM, which is the structured approach to managing user identities and system permissions. To summarize, single-factor authentication uses one method of verification and is the least secure. Multi-factor authentication uses two or more verification types, improving security by adding layers of protection. Single sign-on allows users to log in once and access multiple systems, reducing password fatigue and centralizing access management. These models are tested in Domain 6 of the Information Technology Fundamentals Plus exam, and recognizing their definitions and differences is key to success. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.